Roy Tarpley, the NBA star who was banned, then erased. In the late 1980s, the Dallas Mavericks had a secret weapon in their possession. This secret weapon wasn't their most famous player, but he might have been their most dangerous. A 7-foot forward with guard handles, soft touch, and rebounding instincts like a magnet. His name was Roy Tarpley, and for a brief moment, it looked like he was going to change everything. He was drafted in 1986. Tarpley exploded onto the scene. By his second season, he was the NBA's 6th man of the year, averaging a double-double off the bench. Dallas, on the other hand, was excited about his brilliance as they had never seen someone that smooth, that complete, that dominant without even starting games. He was supposed to be the future, but here's where it gets strange. By 1991, Roy Tarpley was gone. Not traded, not injured, banned. The NBA wiped his name from highlight reels and moved on like he never existed. And for decades, hardly anyone asked why. The truth? Roy Tarpley's downfall was the league's quiet nightmare: addiction. He battled substance abuse issues at a time when the NBA didn't just punish players for it, they buried them. Unlike today, where support systems and rehab programs exist, the late 80s NBA was ruthless. You got caught, you were out. Tarpley's talent was impossible to deny, but his demons were louder. After multiple suspensions, the league made the final call, a lifetime ban. Just like that, one of the brightest young bigs in basketball history disappeared. He tried to fight it, played for teams overseas, and dominated in Greece and Russia. But every time his name came up in the States, it was like he had never been there. He had no mentions in broadcasts, no retrospectives. It was just a dead-end silence. Years later, after the ban was quietly lifted, Tarpley tried to make a comeback, but his body was gone, his rhythm was gone, and the NBA, they had already turned the page, and their focus was elsewhere. Unfortunately, Tarpley passed away in 2015, just 50 years old. There was no ceremony, no tribute, nor recognition. But those who remember him, the real fans, know the truth. Before the league had Giannis, before it had Jokic, Roy Tarpley was the prototype. A big man with a guard's soul, erased before his time, and maybe that's why this story feels haunting, because it's not just about what he lost, it's about what the league chose to forget. Tim Donaghy, the referee who broke basketball's trust, the NBA has mastered the art of selling us perfection, from the greatest athletes to the fairest game, the purest form of competition. But in 2007, that illusion cracked, and the man who shattered it wasn't a player. He was a referee. His name was Tim Donaghy, and for 13 seasons, he wore the stripes, blew the whistle, and controlled the rhythm of games we thought were real. But behind that clean-cut image, something darker was happening. In the early 2000s, Donaghy began placing bets. His bets were not on horse races, not on baseball, they were on NBA games. The bet was on the games he was officiating. At first it seemed harmless, a few friendly wagers, small money, easy wins. But as his success grew, so did he upped his pattern. He began making calls that swayed point spreads, a blocking foul here, a soft technical there, little moments that, in the chaos of a 48-minute game, no one would ever question, except someone did. In 2006, the FBI started investigating suspicious betting activity connected to NBA games. The odds were shifting in strange ways, and money was moving before the games even tipped off. And when they traced it back, every trail led to the same man, Tim Donaghy. When the story broke, in 2007, it didn't just rock the league, it shook the foundation of trust between the game and its fans. A referee, the symbol of fairness, had been fixing games. Not entire outcomes, but moments, quarters, momentum swings. Just enough to tilt the balance without tipping suspicion. Donaghy later admitted he had been feeding inside information to professional gamblers. He gave comprehensive details about injuries, referee matchups, team dynamics, almost anything that could affect a bet. In exchange, he got paid thousands per game. However, the NBA acted fast to get the situation under control before it went out of hand. David Stern called it an isolated incident, a single bad apple in a clean orchard. Donaghy was sentenced to 15 months in federal prison, and the league tried to move on. But at this point, the questions never really disappeared, because some of the games Donaghy officiated were legendary Game 6 of the 2002 Western Conference Finals between the Lakers and Kings, still one of the most controversial playoff games in NBA history. Calls that night were so lopsided, even commentators couldn't hide their disbelief. Years later, Donaghy hinted that the game was influenced not just by him, but by league pressure to extend the series. The NBA denied it, of course, but the fans never forgot. Because that scandal didn't just reveal corruption, it exposed how fragile the illusion of fairness really is. And after prison, Donaghy tried to rebuild his life. He wrote a book, appeared in interviews, even became a sort of dark celebrity. But in the eyes of basketball, he will always be one thing: the referee who proved the game can be played by men, but controlled by shadows. And maybe that's the part that hurts the most. Because for a league that sells trust, Tim Donaghy was the reminder that sometimes even the whistle lies. Len Bias, the superstar who never got to breathe. Every generation has that one what if, that one name whispered in locker rooms, barbershops, and late-night debates. For the 1980s, that name was Len Bias, a player so gifted, so dominant, he was supposed to be the next Michael Jordan. But the world never got to see him take a single NBA dribble. June 17th, 1986, the night which should have been for celebration, the Boston Celtics had just drafted Len Bias with the second overall pick. He was 22, built like a tank, and had just led the University of Maryland to national prominence. Scouts called him Jordan with a jump shot, while Celtics fans called him the future. He was definitely the perfect heir to Larry Bird. But less than 48 hours later, Len Bias was dead. The news hit like a lightning strike. The official story was tagged a cocaine overdose. The NBA world was in standstill. How could a young man in perfect shape, on the verge of superstardom, die just like that? But here's where things get complicated and where the cover-up begins. In the hours after his death, chaos filled the Maryland campus. Police arrived, stories clashed, and details disappeared. Some claimed Bias had been celebrating with friends, others said he barely touched anything. But what truly raised eyebrows was how quickly the narrative formed before the investigation even started. The word cocaine was everywhere. The league, the university, even politicians rushed to shape the story. Because this wasn't just a tragedy, it was a threat. The NBA in the 1980s was already fighting rumors of drug use among players. The league's image was fragile, its reputation still recovering from the early cocaine scandals. And now, the number 2 draft pick, a man linked to the most respected franchise in basketball, had just died before signing his contract, so they moved fast. The media called it a cautionary tale. The NBA was first to distance itself from it. The NCAA clamped down on student athletes, and the government passed the Anti-Drug Abuse Act of 1986, which is one of the harshest drug laws in U.S. history, laws that would devastate black communities for decades. It was all built on the image of Len Bias, a young black man whose death became political ammunition. But the truth, when you look closer, is murkier. The forensic was inconsistent with its reports, and contradictory witness statements were everywhere. Questions about how much he even took were ever, and the one thing no one ever explained: why the rush to label, to condemn, to move on. In the end, Bias's death became more than a tragedy. It became a symbol, rewritten by those who needed it to mean something else. The NBA wanted to protect its image, the government wanted a face for its new war on drugs, and the media, they wanted headlines. But the player himself, the man, the dream, got lost in all the noise. Len Bias wasn't just another story. He was the story that scared the NBA into silence because of a league built on hope and talent. His death reminded everyone of something they didn't want to admit sometimes. Even the brightest stars burn out before the lights ever turn on. Delonte West, the NBA star who fell through the cracks. Some NBA stories are about legacy, while some are about greatness. But this one is about what happens when the spotlight fades and no one's left watching. Delonte West was never supposed to be forgotten. He was a fighter, a left-handed guard from Washington, D.C., born into chaos but built for competition. At St. Joseph's University, he was unstoppable. a sharpshooter with heart, a floor general with fire. He and Jameer Nelson led their team to an almost perfect season, a run so electric it turned college basketball into theater. By 2004, the NBA came calling. He was drafted by the Boston Celtics. West made an immediate impact. He was a tough, fearless, and no-nonsense player. A guard who defended like his life depended on it. But what most fans didn't know, even then, was that Delonte was fighting a battle no one could see. He had been diagnosed with bipolar disorder, a condition that turns your own mind into a war zone. Some days he was unstoppable, sharp, focused, passionate, and alive. Other days, the storm came, and no amount of basketball could quiet it. Still, West kept pushing. He found his rhythm with the Cleveland Cavaliers, playing alongside LeBron James during the 2008 to 2009 season, one of the most dangerous duos in the league. West was scrappy, unfiltered, and loyal. He hit big shots, locked down guards, and gave Cleveland an edge. But then, in 2010, everything started to crumble. First came the rumors, a wild, unverified story about West and LeBron's family that spread like wildfire across the internet. The NBA never confirmed it, no one ever proved it, but it followed him everywhere. The whispers, the jokes, the locker room side eyes. At the time, they became louder than his game. Then came the arrests. In September 2009, Delonte was pulled over on a motorcycle with firearms hidden in a guitar case. To the world, it was bizarre. To those who understood his condition, it was a man spiraling, unmedicated, and lost. After that, the league quietly distanced itself. There were no more press releases, no more statements. It was just silence. He bounced from team to team. Cleveland, Boston again, then Dallas, each stint shorter than the last. By 2012, Delonte West was out of the NBA, and the world stopped watching. Years later, videos began surfacing online. A man in tattered clothes, panhandling, confused. It was Delonte, homeless on the streets of DC and Dallas. Fans were stunned. How could a player who once stood shoulder to shoulder with LeBron James end up like this? The truth is, his story wasn't about failure. It was about neglect. Because for all the NBA's talk about brotherhood, Delonte West slipped through every crack in the system. Mental health wasn't a topic yet. It was a taboo at that time. And instead of getting treatment, he got traded. Instead of support, he got silence. Mark Cuban, owner of the Mavericks, eventually found him in 2020, took him off the streets, got him into rehab, and for a moment it looked like redemption. But healing isn't a straight line. Delonte's journey has been messy, painful, and real. Today, no one knows exactly where he is. Sometimes there are updates, small signs of hope, new attempts at recovery, sometimes just silence again. Delonte West's story isn't about scandal. It's about what happens when a league built on talent forgets the humans behind it. He was tough, fearless, flawed, and in a different time, maybe his story wouldn't have ended this way. Because in the end, Delonte didn't just lose a career. He lost a fight he never should have fought alone. If you're still here, you already know this isn't your regular NBA highlight channel. We talk about the stories they would rather you forget. So hit that like button, share this with someone who thinks they know NBA history, and subscribe, because the next story, it gets darker. Donald Sterling, the racist owner the NBA tried to hide. Every empire has a secret it doesn't want you to know. And for the NBA, that secret wore designer suits, sat courtside in Los Angeles, and owned one of the league's most valuable teams for over 3 decades. His name was Donald Sterling. To most fans, he was just the Clippers owner, an older billionaire who showed up at games with sunglasses and smiling beside celebrities. But behind the luxury boxes and the handshakes, there was something darker, something the league knew about and ignored. Long before the 2014 scandal that blew everything open, Sterling had been facing lawsuit after lawsuit, not for basketball reasons, but for racial discrimination and harassment. Back in the early 2000s, he was sued by the U.S. Department of Justice for refusing to rent apartments to Black and Latino tenants in his Los Angeles buildings. One of his managers even testified that Sterling told him not to rent to African Americans because they smell, they're not clean. The league knew this, it was public record, but the NBA stayed silent because at the time, the Clippers weren't winning and Sterling wasn't making headlines, so the league looked the other way. Then, in 2014, the truth finally caught up. A leaked phone recording went viral, Sterling's voice unmistakable, telling his girlfriend not to bring black people to his games and not to post photos with black celebrities like Magic Johnson. In an instant, the world saw what the league had ignored for years. The tape had spread everywhere, social media, talk shows, news outlets, and for the first time, the NBA couldn't hide him anymore. Players threatened to boycott playoff games, coaches refused to speak for him. Even the Clippers themselves turned their jerseys inside out during warm-ups, hiding the logo of the man who signed their checks. And that's when the NBA finally acted. Commissioner Adam Silver, just months into his job, delivered one of the most powerful press conferences in sports history. He banned Donald Sterling for life from the NBA and forced him to sell the Clippers, but by then the damage was done. The world had seen it all. Not just Sterling's racism, but the league's years of silence before it. Because the truth was about an entire system that stayed quiet, as it was easier to ignore the problem than to confront it. The Clippers would go on to thrive under new ownership, with Steve Ballmer turning the franchise into a winning culture. But the stain of Donald Sterling still lingers in the history of the NBA, a reminder that no matter how polished the league looks on the surface, some stories were buried deep for decades. And it leaves us asking how many other secrets still sit courtside, smiling for the cameras, waiting to be exposed. Chris Andersen, the cybercrime that nearly erased him. Before the tattoos, before the mohawk, before Birdman became a meme of flight and fury, Chris Andersen was just a journeyman trying to stay in the league, an energy player, a hustler, the kind of guy who built his career on rebounds, blocks, and chaos. But in 2012, all of that, his career, reputation, his identity, and everything he owned almost vanished overnight because of a crime he didn't commit. Let's rewind. Andersen's story was already one of redemption. He had been banned from the NBA in 2006 for violating the league's drug policy, and after 2 years of exile, he clawed his way back. He was reinstated, re-energized, and reborn as Birdman. He became a symbol of second chances, the wild energy off Miami's bench during the Heat's Big Three era. Then one morning in 2012, the story flipped. Police raided his home in Colorado, seizing computers, hard drives, and phones. The headlines exploded. Chris Andersen under investigation for child exploitation, the kind of headline that ends careers before the facts even arrive. The NBA suspended him indefinitely and sponsors dropped him. His image, colorful, loud, and proud, suddenly looked dangerous. In the public eye, Birdman wasn't a comeback story anymore. He was considered a monster. But here's the thing, he wasn't. Months passed, and as the investigation deepened, authorities uncovered something unbelievable. Andersen was the victim of a complex cybercrime. A woman in Canada had been catfishing both Andersen and a teenage girl, posing as each of them to manipulate their communications. She faked identities, fabricated conversations, and built a trap that fooled everyone, including law enforcement. For over a year, Andersen lived in silence. His name dragged through the mud, his career frozen, his friends and teammates unsure what to believe. He couldn't defend himself publicly because the investigation was ongoing, and in the NBA, silence often sounds like guilt. When the truth finally came out, when the catfisher was arrested and Andersen was fully cleared, the news barely made a ripple. The damage was already done. The league had moved on like every other day. Fans had moved on, and Birdman's name still carried a shadow. But here's the part that defines him. He didn't disappear, came back stronger and louder, with tattoos brighter than ever and an energy that said, "I'm still here." By the time he joined the Miami Heat in 2013, Andersen wasn't just a role player. He was redemption personified. He dove for loose balls, blocked shots like his life depended on it, and helped Miami win the 2013 championship. The crowd loved him for his style, but few understood the pain behind it. Chris Andersen's story isn't just about a man falsely accused. It's about how fast truth can drown in noise, how reputations can vanish with a headline, and how survival sometimes means screaming louder than the lies. In the end, Birdman didn't just fly, he rose from a storm that should have grounded him forever. Eddy Curry, the hidden tragedy the NBA moved past too quickly. Eddy Curry was supposed to be Shaq's heir, a 7-foot Chicago native with soft hands, a smooth touch, and a body built for the paint. By 19, he was drafted by his hometown Bulls, the Baby Bulls era, the post-Jordan hope. The future looks bright, but sometimes the future never arrives. At first, everything looked perfect. Curry could score effortlessly around the rim, his footwork was polished, his potential limitless. By 2005, he was averaging nearly 17 points a game, one of the most efficient young centers in the league. But then he collapsed, literally. During a game that year, Curry felt chest pains and palpitations. Doctors feared it was a heart condition, a genetic defect that could be fatal. The Bulls, terrified of liability, told him to take a DNA test. However, Curry refused, citing privacy. The team responded by shutting him down, then quietly trading him to the Knicks. No press conference, no long goodbye, just a business decision. In New York, things only got heavier. His production dipped, his weight ballooned, and his mental health took hits from every side. The media labeled him lazy, undisciplined, a bust. But no one asked the harder question: what happens to a player when the system treats him like a product, not a person? Then came 2009, the darkest year of his life. Eddy Curry's ex-girlfriend, Nova Henry, and their 9-month-old daughter, Ava, were murdered by her attorney, a man Curry once trusted to manage his finances. The news broke for a day. Then, just like that, it faded. No long features, no documentaries, no league tributes. It was just dead-end silence. It was bitter and heavy from him, losing the mother of his child and the baby, then having to lace up your sneakers 2 weeks later because basketball doesn't stop for grief. Curry tried to come back, but the fire was gone, his body gave out, his focus scattered. He drifted to Miami, then China, chasing one more shot at peace. And the league, it just moved on. In the record books, Eddy Curry is a name on a stat sheet, a 7-footer who never reached his potential. But the real story isn't about points or rebounds. It's about how the NBA, so obsessed with storylines of redemption and glory, has no language for quiet suffering. The truth is, Eddy Curry's career didn't collapse because he was lazy or careless. It collapsed because sometimes life hits harder than the game ever could. Because when the cameras turn off and the crowd goes home, no one sees what the spotlight shadows hide. And Eddy Curry's story, that's the kind of tragedy the league doesn't replay. It buries it, and hope you never ask again. Reggie Lewis, the captain who collapsed. Every franchise has a story they would rather not remember. For the Boston Celtics, it wasn't a losing season or a missed draft pick. It was a sound, a thud on the court, and the silence that followed. Reggie Lewis wasn't built to be loud. He didn't talk much, didn't showboat. He wasn't Bird, he wasn't McHale. But when he stepped on the floor, Boston knew who the leader was. He was the bridge between eras, the man chosen to carry the Celtics out of the shadow of the 80s. By 1993, he was 27 years old, an all-star, and the heart of the team. He wasn't supposed to be a star, but he became one anyway. Then came that playoff night, Game 1, Celtics versus Hornets. Reggie drives to the basket and collapses. For a moment, the Garden froze. Then he got up, smiling faintly, as if to calm everyone down. He said he was fine, but he wasn't. Doctors ran tests and found something, a heart condition known as focal cardiomyopathy, which is a rare disease that weakens the heart muscle. The doctors told him not to play. If he did, it could kill him. But the Celtics were caught in something deeper. It was a tug of war between medicine and management. Some doctors said the condition was career-ending, while others said it was manageable. Reggie, desperate to play, sought second opinions. And in that space, the gray area between hope and denial, the NBA stayed quiet. He missed the rest of that playoff run, but in July, as summer workouts began, Reggie returned to the team gym at Brandeis University. There were no cameras, no crowd, just a man trying to prove he still belonged. And then, it happened again. He was running light drills, no contact, no pressure. Then, he dropped. There was no pulse, no recovery, and just like that, Reggie Lewis was gone. The 27 years old was gone before the paramedics even arrived. The city of Boston broke that day. The fans poured into the streets, and the garden filled with flowers, tears from old men who had watched the dynasty years, and from kids who had just found their hero. But beneath the grief lies several questions in the heart of many. Why was he cleared to practice? Who signed off on his return? Why did the Celtics' own doctors contradict each other? For years, investigations followed, reports that the team pushed him too hard, others that Reggie hid how bad he felt. However, the truth was buried somewhere between fear and loyalty, and the league moved on quietly. No documentaries, no deep dives, just a gentle fade into memory. But those who watched him play remember the crossover, his composure, the way he made the game look calm. Reggie Lewis wasn't supposed to die a legend. He was supposed to live one. And his story, the silence, the cover-up, the questions, remains one of the most haunting chapters the NBA ever tried to forget. Lorenzen Wright, the call that never got answered. It started with a phone call and ended with silence. Lorenzen Wright wasn't a superstar, but in Memphis, he was the guy. Born and raised there, he was a hometown kid who made it to the NBA, then came back to play for the team his city finally got, the Memphis Grizzlies. For fans, he wasn't just a player, he was one of them. Wright was 6'11", smooth in motion, a center who played hard, smiled often, and gave everything to the game. He wasn't flashy, never needed to be. He just worked, rebounded, hustled, and left sweat on the floor every night. From his rookie year in 1996 with the Clippers to his seasons in Atlanta, Sacramento, and finally Memphis, he built a quiet but solid career. Over 700 games, nearly 8,000 points, he was respected and reliable. The kind of teammate every locker room needs, but after his NBA days ended, life wasn't the same. The spotlight faded, the paychecks slowed, and the noise stopped. He was divorced, trying to find footing in life after basketball, raising 6 kids, balancing business dreams with reality. And then, in the summer of 2010, everything went dark. July 18th, Wright disappears. No one knows where he went. Days pass. Then a strange 911 call surfaces. The dispatcher hears a man's voice, frantic, and then gunshots were heard multiple times, then nothing. For 9 days, that was all anyone had, a call and a silence, until the police found his body in a wooded area outside Memphis. There were bullet wounds everywhere. It wasn't random, nor was it a robbery. It was personal. The NBA world froze, players posted tributes, and the city mourned. But the investigation got dragged for years, and rumors spread about deaths, about arguments, and about people he trusted. Then, nearly a decade later, the truth finally surfaced. His ex-wife, Shara Wright, was arrested and charged in connection with his murder. So was Billy Turner, a man she knew from church. It turned out the call that went unanswered wasn't just a cry for help. It was the sound of a setup. The story hit like a gut punch. The city that had once cheered for him now mourned him like family. Lorenzen Wright didn't die as a statistic, he died as a son of Memphis, a man who gave everything to the game only to be betrayed by the people closest to him. The NBA really talked about it, and the story faded between trade rumors and highlight reels. But every now and then, when an old Grizzlies fan talks about Zoe, you will hear it in their tone, a sadness, a respect, and a reminder. Lorenzen Wright's story wasn't just tragedy. It was the truth, the kind of truth that the NBA doesn't always know how to tell. Bison Dele, the man who walked away and never came back. In the NBA, most players chased the spotlight. Bison Dele, on the other hand, ran from it, and somewhere out in the Pacific Ocean, he vanished. Before he changed his name, he was Brian Williams, a 6'10" center with a touch of grace and a restless soul. Drafted by the Orlando Magic in 1991, he had everything needed in a player: the size, skill, and a bright future. He played for Denver, the Clippers, Chicago, Detroit, and even earned a championship ring with the '97 Bulls. But even then, something about Brian was different. He wasn't built for fame. He would show up to practice with jazz CDs, read poetry on flights, and talk more about philosophy than basketball. He didn't want the attention that came with the game. He just wanted peace. So, in 1999, at just 30 years old, he walked away. Brian left $36 million on the table. There was no farewell tour, no press conference. He just disappeared from the league, and that was only the beginning. He proceeded to change his name to Bison Dele in honor of his Cherokee and African heritage. He started traveling the world: Africa, the Middle East, Tahiti. He bought a boat which was named the Hakuna Matata and began sailing the open seas with his girlfriend, Serena Carlin, and his brother, Miles Dabbard. For a while, it sounded like freedom, then it turned into something dark. In July 2002, somewhere between Tahiti and Hawaii, the Hakuna Matata went silent. There were no calls, no signal, no trace. Days turned to weeks. Then the boat turned up, but Bison, Serena, and the captain were gone. Only Miles was left. When investigators tracked him down, his story fell apart fast. Miles was spotted trying to use Bison's passport, forging his signature to buy gold in Phoenix. He said Bison was fine, but his eyes told a different story. Authorities pressed him, but before they could get real answers, Miles overdosed on insulin and died, taking the truth with him. No bodies were ever found, nor closure. It was just theories. Some said it was an accident, a fight that went too far. Others believe it was premeditated, a jealous brother, a twisted plan. But no one really knows. However, the ocean keeps its secrets. Bison Dele wasn't just another player who disappeared after basketball. He was a man searching for peace from the noise, the money, and the fame. He wanted to live freely, love deeply, and escape the chaos that fame brought him. But in trying to find himself, he found the one thing he could never outrun: tragedy. And so, the legend of Bison Dele remains what it always was: mysterious, beautiful, and heartbreaking. A man who turned his back on the game, sailed into the horizon, and never came back. Every league has highlights they replay forever and stories they'd rather the world forget. But sometimes it's in those quiet, uncomfortable truths where the real soul of the game hides. Which one of these stories hit you the hardest? Drop your thoughts in the comments, and if you want more untold NBA stories the league doesn't talk about, smash the like button and do not forget to share this video and make sure you're subscribed, because the next story might be one they never meant for you to hear.